Okay, so it's lovely to have you back. Thank you so much for joining. And this is officially the last class of this amazing course that we've journeyed on together on how to heal your relationships. And I really hope that you've got enough information now to just go and mull it all over and really begin to apply it. In fact, I hope you've already started to apply it, but from now on, let's just really just apply, and remind ourselves of all these wonderful things that we've shared together on this course. And today I want to wrap it all up. I want to wrap it all up in love. And I'm calling the title of today's topic, Two Halves Don't Make a Whole. Unlike we've all been taught in geometry, right? And I felt that this was really important to talk about as our last class today, because two halves don't make a whole. Not at all. Who knows what I'm getting at right now? Who can rephrase? Who wants to give my topic today a new title? Who would like to rephrase it? You give the title today. Rephrase that and put it right for me. Two halves don't make a whole, so what makes a whole? My way of rephrasing it would be two wholes make a whole. WHOLE. Two wholes make a whole. Half of something, is half of something. You can't really make up a whole with the other half of something. They will always remain as two halves. But if you are whole and wholesome in your own right, if you are the world, as you said, Baharak, in your own right, if you are your own universe in your own right, then when another universe comes along, that's when you can really enjoy your relationships. There's nothing else left to do because you are whole. You are wholesome, as you said, Yen. Wholesome is one of the words I use as well. Wholesome. And we've learned throughout this last 6 months together what it takes to be wholesome. And today I'm just summing it all up and wrapping it all up for you in a whole load of love. My little cliches, I love them. Yeah. So yes, you could rephrase it in many ways. Two worlds coming together to make one. Two wholesome individuals coming together to make one whole, wholesome relationship. We all know, and we've learned along the way, that we can't be in a relationship if we're just sort of halfway there in our own rights. We've got to be fully wholesome. We have got to have matured into the full wholesome being that we are as much as possible. And there's never an end in a way to that journey. There's always more to discover about oneself, but at the very least with our own self-love, to be able to then just enjoy the other fully. And when you are whole, all the barriers are down. Because when you are whole, there's nothing you need to fear. Because what does it mean to be whole? It means that I've got it all inside of me. I have everything I need. So the other is free. And when the other's free, so are you, right? When we are whole, full of our own self-love, we are free to love and be loved any which way life turns up. And that's the ticket. That's the ticket actually to happiness, not just happy relationships, it's the ticket to happiness. It's all very well known, the theory, isn't it? And I was thinking today before I jumped on this call, my words will just be words, just spoken words, until they are taken on and lived fully as experiences. And you know already that there's a journey to get there. You know already what work you need to do, and you're doing it. You're doing it. I don't suppose there's ever a stage when we become fully whole, as in the limit. We reach a limit where there's no more room for growth. That doesn't exist. Thank God. Thank God. Somebody said to me once, Rosalind, all the work that you do in yourself, is there ever going to be an end to it? And I'm like, no, thank God. Thank God there isn't, because there's always more of me to discover. There's always more that I can experience. And hence, in that very fact, it's not a tall order. It's not, oh God, that mountain to climb to get to me at the top of the mountain. No, it's just life. It's just a journey. It's just the way I live. So it's not a mountain to climb anymore. It's not a goal to reach. It's a gift that I've given myself, that's all. Because I know that I'm unlimited. And thank God that there's lots more of me to discover. Otherwise, I'd get to a point where I'd be so bored of myself. Well, what's the point? Right? And thank God that everybody else is the same. There's always more and more of our beautiful selves that can unfold. But what really is important in the equation is to love that beautiful self so well, so wholeheartedly, so fully, that you are free as a bird, that your soul is free, and that the people that you encounter in your lives, whether you have short or long-term relationships with them, just look at them with the eyes of love. See them as love, just looking straight back at you. There's love. Wow. In all its different shapes and forms and sizes and volumes. Love is something that we're still learning to recognize. Be open to being shown love in all its shapes and sizes. And love yourself through it all. That's wholesome. That's whole. That frees you up of all the unnecessary pain that arises in relationships. Let's look at this a little bit more deeply. I've written down here, just before I move on, we will only truly enjoy our relationships. We will only truly love this existence as separate from each other if we become whole in our own right and experience the wholeness within ourselves. When you experience the wholeness within yourself, this existence of separation becomes a joy, like a fun experiment, like a kind of experience, because I have the awareness that I am one with it all, and I have the awareness that in this particular existence, I'm separate. Through this particular mind filter, if you like, I'm separate. But because I know it, because I know the truth and my current reality, I can just enjoy it. I can just play with it. It becomes a playground. Life becomes your playground rather than a struggle. It doesn't mean to say that there are not going to be challenges. Today I learned the news that I lost my cousin who lives in Canada. She died of a second huge seizure at the age of 56, I think. So a mother has lost her daughter, and a daughter has lost her mother today, amongst many others. I also learned that one of my very dear friends in Malaysia, thank you, darling, her daughter is in hospital with tumors, one of which has ruptured in her womb, and she's being operated on. She's 8 years old. So it doesn't mean to say that life won't have any challenges for you. But when you are wholesome, these challenges won't be the end of the world. They will just be life playing itself out. We won't go under as far as we might have if we didn't feel whole in our own rights. When we become whole and wholesome, a whole new level of existence, a whole new open perspective shows up for us. And we live from that perspective. It doesn't mean that there's no pain. It doesn't mean that there's no challenges. It just means that we live them differently, with great awareness, with the eyes of one who is awakened. And I'd like to invite you to continue your journeys well and truly beyond this 6-month course that we've done together. To just keep on keeping on. And I'm going to be doing the same. You can think of me in your days when you're feeling really low, go, oh, Rosalind will be doing something on herself today. And I'll be thinking of you too. Oh, I hope they're working on themselves today. Because so often on those very low days, you will find that actually it's a global feeling. But the vast majority of people are feeling very vulnerable and low as well, perhaps. So join in together, do whatever you need to just breathe into it and rise up again and walk on into the unknown. Who knows where we're all going with this, but we might as well make the very best of every single minute that we have with ourselves and our loved ones. Make it a great journey. I sound like a preacher. I think I'm turning into a preacher. It just comes out that way. What can I do? I'm a bit like my dad. My dad preaches. So funny. I think it's in the DNA. So I'm going to put some questions out to you now. Let's move into key eye opener number 2. Key eye opener number 1 is, it takes 2 wholes to make a whole. But what does it take to make a whole individual?
So yeah,
What happens when we become more and more wholesome in our own rights is that, you know, we may have relationships with people, they may be short and not last very long, or they may last forever. Who knows? They're all going to be different. But what's different is that when we're wholesome, if that relationship does end, it doesn't feel like we've lost an arm, because we're whole in our own rights and we feel it. Yeah. So my sense is, yeah, that you're feeling a lot more whole already in your own right. So you're freer to, happier on your own. Yeah. Happier to have somebody enter into your life. You know, anything, you know, it's all okay because I feel okay in my own right. Yeah. And that's when you are freest to actually let life just unfold the way it wants to unfold, because I'm free, because I have so much self-love on board that it's okay. Whatever happens is okay. That's beautiful. I'm going to throw my ideas into the mix. What makes a wholesome individual? Authenticity, right? We talked about this many times. Somebody who's true to their heart, who chooses their heart's truth in every choice they make. And if it takes time to get into the heart's truth and know what that is, then so be it. Like I said to you before, I've got friends who like sit around for half an hour deciding what their heart's truth choice is about, what restaurant they're going to go and have dinner in, literally. And that's fine. And I love that because they're so dedicated to their heart's truth. Yeah. And this is really, I think, the most beautiful way to live. Somebody who has met and who continues to meet their own needs. As you were saying, Baharak, about needs, yeah? To know my own needs and to meet them in the best way I possibly can without depending on the other or expecting the other to do it for us. The more we can do these for ourselves, these things for ourselves, the better our relationships will be. It doesn't mean that we never have needs, but there's always ways of meeting them. And if we know that our partners, our nearest and dearest, or our parents or our children can't meet them, there's always a million different ways in which they can be met. Yeah. Not least within ourselves a lot of the time as well. Sometimes we discover that the need isn't even a need in the first place. It's just some kind of like annoyance or some kind of pain. So in we go, heal it, done. Needs dissolved into nothing. So that's one I've written down. For me, somebody who is truly wholesome is somebody who embraces their experiences, not as right or wrong or good for me or bad for me, but just as life. simple experiences. They're just experiences, just become experiences with nothing attached to them. So there's no judgment about what I'm experiencing or who I'm in a relationship with. This isn't wrong for me or better for me than the last relationship or worse for me than the previous relationship or whatever. It's not like that anymore for somebody who's truly wholesome. It just is. It takes a bit of journeying to get to this point where you are free of making life right or wrong. It's less challenging from this point of view because you just embrace it as it is. Okay, this is. Somebody who's truly wholesome for me is able to literally surrender. Surrender is a fabulous experience. I invite you to do it as often as you possibly can. If you're in trouble, feeling resistance towards something or having a really tough time, just literally the first place to go, surrender. Instead of going into battle, which we so quickly do, right? We are going to continue to mess up. We're not out of the woods. We may mess up for the rest of our lives, but as long as we know, have the presence, the ability to own our pain, heal it quickly, and return to the truth, which is our love, that's wholesome behavior. But if you have made a mistake, or if there is something in life that's just proving to be just really pushing your buttons, there's a place that we can go to when we surrender, which is actually so freeing. It frees you up. And actually what's happening in life no longer looks like a problem because you've surrendered to it so fully. It's only a problem when you're resisting it, right? Your very resistance to it actually is making it the problem. But if, if the French resistance, la résistance française, hadn't resisted, I don't know, that's a big topic. But if we don't resist, if we just, there's nobody to fight. Yeah, there's nothing to fight. There's nothing to fight for, and there's nobody to fight with. And there's nobody for the other to fight with. It's just diffused completely. That white flag of surrender diffuses the whole battlefield. And it's very, very nice. So practice surrender. A wholesome person practices surrender regularly when things get too much or when you're feeling resistance or just can't cope with something. Literally just sink into it, sink into the whole thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience, and it frees you up enormously. It's incredibly powerful to do that. So instead of trying to change somebody or change an experience or make yourself right over somebody, you just, total surrender. And this way, all your experiences merge into the making of a very positive person, of a very powerful person, of a master. This is mastery. Somebody who behaves like this in life is a master. And you'll behave like this as a master until you get to the point where you've mastered. And you're so zen and so fine that you're totally in your own inner peace. You have so much awareness, so much inner strength because you've owned your pain so often. Every time you own your pain, you gain in strength, inner strength. It makes you strong. It makes the next time pain shows up easier to own. And trust me, it really does help, because sometimes huge pain comes knocking at your door and it's like you feel like you're going to die from it because it's so excruciating, but you're strong enough by then because you've kept owning and owning your own pain and healing it, that it's okay. You can do this one too. So it's incredibly empowering to own your own pain and let all your experiences just merge and become the making of this incredibly masterful, aware, positive person. Somebody who's very wholesome, practices forgiveness. And Terry gave me this one on a call that we had recently. He said something, I was, oh God, darling, quick, I've got to write it down. I'm going to use this in my next class. And he'll use it as well, hopefully, in the classes that we do together. But he said, you know what, darling? He said, forgiveness for me is accepting my own pain and letting it go. Forgiveness for me is accepting my own pain and letting it go. It doesn't even have anything to do with the other. It's all about, it's like, what's that lovely quote that I think it's from Khalil Gibran? Forgiveness is the fragrance that the flower gives off when it's crushed. It's a bit like that. Somebody who's truly wholesome is truly vulnerable. We talked about vulnerability. I shared something on Facebook the other day because I was in my little sanctuary in the garden here, surrounded by beautiful forget-me-nots, which are these tiny, tiny little blue flowers with a little yellow center. They're just exquisite. And I was like, my God, I was just looking at this and going, my God, you're so beautiful and you're so tiny. And I took a photo and the message was, how vulnerable can you be? There is such intense beauty in vulnerability and grace and a blossoming of the true you. Because vulnerability is softness. And in softness, the true you can just shine outwards. And nature shows it to us all the time in every single flower. This vulnerability. It takes great strength to be vulnerable. It takes that tree and those strong branches to then be vulnerable on its very tips with its flowers and its blossoms. So a wholesome person is soft and gentle and vulnerable. And the list goes on. I could be here all day, but I think you know them already. Basically, a wholesome person is the real you.